Maureen Steele and I with American Made Foundation landed here in Marblehead, Massachusetts, where our American Navy was established hundreds of years ago. Boston, where the Tea Party erupted into a spirited battle called the American Revolution, a fight for our independence. And yet today, are we really free? Does the state have control of your assets, namely your children? Well, we are back again in Massachusetts because the fight continues on for sovereignty. And we're taking a deep look into Child Protective Services and the organization run by the state of Massachusetts known as the Department of Children and Families. And welcome to a first in our American-made documentary series.
Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping.
The American Made Foundation is a 501c3 dedicated to educating the public on constitutional rights, especially when it comes in terms of agency and judicial corruption and overreach. Through investigative media, legal research, and civic empowerment, the foundation exposes systemic abuse and equips the citizens so that they can take informed, legal, and lawful action.
What you will see in this documentary is a product of our sister organization, American Made Action. Underneath American Made Action is the Department of Government Accountability, a grassroots organization run by we the people to ensure our rights and no constitutional overreach and judicial overreach. Also, you will see the United Law Coalition in action. These lawyers that are featured in this documentary are part of that law coalition. These are brave men that are prepared with their pen to go up against Goliath. These large agencies and rogue judges that have far overstepped their bounds and that are encroaching on unalienable rights of we the people.
American Made Action is a 501c4. Again, it's designed so that we the people can take action in partnership with the legal apparatus that Maureen just described. So enjoy our docuseries. This is a first in many, as we are designed to educate you, the public, so that you can take action. Meet Isael Rivera, called Izzy by those who know him. He is a devoted father from Fitchburg, Massachusetts, who now stands at the center of a storm involving the state's Department of Children and Families. In early 2025, Izzy and his partner Ruth Encarnacion faced allegations of medical neglect after choosing not to vaccinate their 9-month-old, citing religious beliefs.
So this case started here, it's crossed state lines, it went into Texas. You were jailed in Texas as well.
In my opinion, this should be automatically dismissed like that. But instead, what are they doing? They're just prolonging it. Now they've rescheduled for July.
We went to the appointment, it started off normal. We're gonna check your son, just normal.
The majority of the cases I see should not have been instituted at all.
I hope she throws the whole case out and publicly reprimands the government agencies.
Like all government agencies, so it just simply tries to expand its operations, its power, its control.
WRKO, Jeff Cooner, Boston's bulldozer. There is going to be a rally to reunite the Rivera family. Let's get the Riveras back together again. They deserve to have custody of their children.
I just got out from the jail right now, and because of losing everything in this situation, because of DCF and I guess all the parties involved, I've been living in my car while supporting my family from a distance.
So can you explain what happened on that day? You took your youngest child, a 9-month-old little boy.
Yes.
And in for a well visit. Can you explain what happened that day?
Yeah, so we went in I went for the visit. The reason being is because the doctor had pressured us to take a vitamin K12 shot, and the mother didn't want to deal with that stress or pressure. So she asked that I take our son to that appointment. When I went to the appointment, it started off normal. We're gonna check your son, just normal. Then the doctor had brought up the vaccine, again, the vitamin K12, and I then told the doctor, we have spoken about this in length over the phone, and you said you would not pressure me when I came to this appointment. The doctor then said, no, I'm not pressuring you, but he needs it, and we're just recommending it. And I said, okay, well, can I get the normal paper I signed at the previous hospital that shut down, that I used to take my children to? Can I just get the same paperwork that they used to give me, which is the religious exemption? He said, I can't give that to you because we haven't seen your son in a certain amount of time and you haven't gotten this vaccine. I then said, so are you forcing me to get this vaccine? He said, I'm not forcing you, I'm recommending you. I said, well, you're not allowing me to not get it, and you keep pressuring me to get it. So if that's not force, then what is it? You know? And then he then went to bring it to the attention of, well, we haven't seen your son in a certain amount of time, and I feel like this may be this may be of a concern. And I said, okay, well, my son has been seen a couple times. Isn't it in your records? He then said, we don't have the full records yet. And I said, okay, well, don't you guys have to get that? It's not up to me to bring you those records, correct? He said, yes, we just haven't been able to get it. I then said to him, okay, well, I don't want to vaccinate my child again. When you have the paper, just give it to me, I'll sign it. If you need me to get my pastor to sign a document to give you as well for a religious exemption, I can do that as well. He then told me that, that I would have to get my child vaccinated because he had concerns because he doesn't have any knowledge of them being seen by other doctors. And so he basically put the two together. And I said, well, what law states that there's a certain amount of time that you have to see my son between a certain amount of years if my son is completely healthy? And he said, well, there is no law, but I am concerned. And if you leave here today without the vaccine and without documentation showing that your son has been seen, then we're going to have to file a 51A report. And then that's where I got a bit upset, and I asked him, well, what do you mean you have to file? What is a 51A? He said, well, I'm a mandated reporter, and I have concerns of medical neglect because you're not vaccinating your son, and there's no history of prior appointments to his initial appointment here. And I had told him that I was going to switch doctors, that I just want him to complete the wellness check when he was pressuring me for the vaccine. And that's when his whole energy shifted and his demeanor shifted, and he started speaking to me about well, we don't have a record of him being seen.
You leave the office, he tells you, if you don't, you get threatened. If you don't get this shot, I'm going to file a 51A. And for people that don't know what that is a mandated reporter form that they fill out, send to CPS. And CPS has the choice, Child Protective Services, whether it's considered a screen in or a screen out. A screen in is if it's alarming enough, the report alarming enough to warrant opening an investigation with the family. And a screen out would be there's nothing here. In this case, you have a right as a parent in the United States of America to decline medical treatment for your child, to refuse a vaccine. So he files a 51A, and an investigation, it seems, was opened.
Yes.
Really violates due process all up and down, all the way down. From the time that a child gets involved with the system or a family gets involved with the system, all the way till finally when the agency lets go. Just about every single aspect of it is completely against what we in the United States and all of our other judicial system and legal system aspects consider to be reasonable due process. I mean, it starts right with how children get put into the system from the beginning. Each state has its own, what I like to call a snitch hotline. It's a child abuse hotline that people can call. It's very commonly to call from medical practices, from schools, cranky neighbors, cranky exes who want to get the other ex in trouble. There's all kinds of ways that people get into that. In our little state of Massachusetts alone, there's over 100,000 calls to this hotline every year. And from there, the agency takes a look at these things and decides which cases to investigate and which ones not to. Well, then we get to the second problem, and the problem is a very low standard of proof. It's called a reasonable cause to believe that a child is abused or neglected. Now, what's that mean? Nobody knows. Yeah. But it's something less than even probable cause.
How do you find out that a case has been opened?
I found out because, well, he told me that he was going to do it, and then I left after getting a clean bill of health for my child from him, ironically. And then I find out because a CPS, or in our state they call him DCF agent, just showed up to our door knocking and just left a notice on the door, and then I read the notice that they wanted to see our children, and that's how I found out.
Okay, so now they want to see all of your children, even though there was just a 9-month-old who you refused a vitamin K vaccine for.
Correct.
Okay, and so you get that first notice on your door, and what do you do, and what happens next?
Well, I get the notice on my door, and I look it over, and I'm just stunned. I can't believe that this is a reality, because the doctor just gave my son a clean bill of health after looking him over, but still for some reason filed the medical neglect. And I mean, what I did after that was basically just call them, and well, actually prior to calling them, I found out that they were, through a phone call through my wife, that they had gone to her mom's home as well, and basically just went down the family line to just find us, you know. So her mother, my brothers, her sisters, even extended family that don't live in the state, they were calling anybody and everyone they could that had a connection to us to figure out where we were, you know, and to get in contact with us.
Right. Did the doctor indicate that you had an unwell child? I mean, when I think medical neglect, I think of some child with a broken arm and parents leave them, you know, with a broken arm for days. That would be, in my book, medical neglect. So how did it escalate to this level where, you know, your entire family, extended family is getting called all over the country, trying to hunt you down like it's some sort of desperate situation? What was conveyed to DCF, the Department of Children and Families here in Massachusetts?
I'm not really sure what was conveyed to them, you know, because they're, like you said, medical neglect or any type of neglect would be like something like a broken arm, a bruise, a scratch, something that actually raises, you know, the concerns of abuse or neglect, which there was none. I mean, the doctor let me go, you know, he gave me a clean bill of health. He said he was going to report because he was a mandated reporter. I was just going to switch my doctor and get the religious exemption. That's how I left off. And I thought it would just be fine, you know. If there was truly medical neglect or any type of neglect, then why didn't they call the police on me? So I didn't take it as serious, I guess, as they were trying to, you know, attack me for it, you know. So they didn't convey to me any type of abuse or neglect, and still to this day, even on the report, they've switched it from medical neglect to other things, you know. They're not even substantiating the medical neglect because there is none, you know.
Right. So now they're trying to, it appears they're trying to find other reasons to hold on to your children and to keep you and your wife away from your children.
In the Child Protective Services, though, it's so fuzzy. What constitutes a reasonable cause to believe that a child is being abused or neglected? So it's, they way overreach. And I mean, I've seen things like, you know, the parents take away a teenager's iPhone. You know, they homeschool children. They won't get the children vaccinated, or they don't want to go on the regular schedule to the pediatrician that the pediatrician thinks is necessary. Things like this, the parents are supposed to be allowed and able to do and to direct the upbringing of their own children.
You get off the phone with DCF, tell them everything's good, you don't want their services, your rights are being violated. Now what happens?
It just happened again. It just kept happening every day.
They keep showing up at your house?
Yeah, and then I eventually called the supervisor and then the supervisor above that to see if, you know, if something could be done about this, and they just all agreed that's their procedure, that's how they have to do it. I explained to them that this was filed off of a medical neglect of one child, which was proven to not be medically neglected and left with a clean bill of health, in which I asked them why, if there was a true concern, was I allowed to leave that hospital? Why didn't they call the police on me? You know, why didn't they actually intervene?
Right.
And they just gave me no answers and railroaded me and just told me they need to see my kids, and that's all they were giving me.
And they're showing up at your house every day?
Yes, until they eventually showed up with the police, yes.
Okay. And what town is this in?
Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
And so it's Worcester County DCF office, that department?
Yes, it was the Leominster, Massachusetts DCF.
The Leominster, okay. And so now, which police force is involved? Is it Leominster Police, Fitchburg Police? Worcester Police. Who's showing up at your house with the CPS?
Fitchburg Police.
Fitchburg Police. And how many officers show up with the CPS worker, DCF?
It was, I would say maybe around, I'm not sure the exact number because we hid because it was just such a traumatizing experience, but enough to surround the entire house. So I would say 6 to 10. Oh, and then police cars blocking the roads and.
Okay. So you're being dealt with like you're a criminal.
So, I mean, it happened several times before we said, okay, we're just gonna leave because clearly the state and the city is not protecting us or our children or our interests or our rights. And so, yeah, we left.
Fearing the loss of their children, the couple fled to Texas, only to be apprehended by law enforcement and held for 30 days for $2.5 million bail each.
You know, just, okay, if they're not gonna protect us, let's just move to another state where we have friends and, you know, other family that, you know, maybe they won't treat us the way the state would, because Texas, to my knowledge at the time, is a different, you know, it operates differently than a state like this where they don't protect your kids. And at least that's what I was told. And so I just said, okay, well, we're gonna have to leave you're gonna have to leave your job behind, unfortunately. I'll pick up more clientele because I'm a digital marketer. I'll support us, you know, and then we prayed and we left.
Okay. And you're thinking, we're just starting a new life here. That's all behind you. And then what happens in Texas?
I went to go get groceries one day and formula, and you know, this was told to me after how events occurred, but just to speak from the pretense of what happened. So I was going to get groceries for my kids and formula for my youngest son, and I was caught on a facial recognition in the grocery store. And I left, and there was a truck outside with tinted windows, and they were just there basically to follow me. They followed me to our location, and then we were surrounded.
That's just incredible. Okay, and as far as you know, Izzy, did they have a warrant for your arrest at this point, or are there warrants out, and how were those acquired? Do you know?
So at that point, I didn't know there was a warrant out, or I, would have handled it. I would have just left. But
yeah. And how did they get a warrant for you? What was said? Do you know?
I was told after that they got a warrant because we didn't show up to a court date that they had put to basically see if to take my children. Yeah. And that's how. So
you didn't get served. So you missed a court date, but you didn't know there was a court date.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you ever get proof that they had served you or told you there was a court date or anything like that, or you didn't know and you were in Texas?
I didn't know. I was just in Texas. I knew things were escalating, but any notice they ever gave me was that we need to see the children, and I was like, okay, well, my rights are being protected. I tried talking to the doctor originally. I tried talking to DCF over the phone and their supervisors. I tried talking to the police. They're just attacking me. I don't know what to do, so we just left. So I didn't get any notification. I didn't get any notice. By their own statements, which I read after I was in jail, they said that they notified me on one date and then they went to serve me on a date after that, so by their own statements, they're contradicting themselves,
Right. Okay, so there's no proof of service, which is just due process, and they can't prove you were served.
So the way the situation happened was they surrounded me. I didn't know anything until they said it over like a intercom, and they said, "We know you're in there. We're not leaving. Come out with your hands up, or we're gonna rip the door off." And then I was like, and then my kids started crying and getting terrified, and so then I opened up the shades and I saw that we were surrounded, and there was about like 15 to 20 pistols pointed at me and my family, which was dramatic and unnecessary. They already had the whole perimeter enclosed. They had my only way of they had my car, my only way of transportation. I should say my automobile. They had it, they were next to that too. So it's not like there was anywhere I could go or anything I could do. Yeah. So just like a movie scene basically is what it looked like. And I walked out and I prayed and I said, God, if today's my last day, like, please protect my children and don't please don't let them go into a foster care and have things happen to them that happened in
Their 5 children, unharmed, were placed under state custody. Extradited back to Massachusetts, Izzy, charged with kidnapping his own children, remained detained for 6 weeks, while Ruth was released on bail. Their case has ignited debates on parental rights, medical freedom, and the extent of state intervention. This is not just a story of the Rivera family. This is an American-made foundation investigation into a billion-dollar system built on broken families. From Massachusetts to every corner of the country, Child Protective Services has morphed into a business, one that profits off the seizure, trafficking, and long-term separation of children from loving homes.
So then, a certain number of these cases continue in an administrative track, where the agency comes in and oversees and puts together plans to try to fix the family. And then a certain number go into the actual judicial system, where they go into court. And in court, they're entitled to a hearing up front. If they take those children from the family, they're entitled to a hearing. And supposedly, it's supposed to be within 72 hours in all these states. It never is. Many times it's weeks or even months before they get a hearing. So these children are languishing in custody of the state, and the parents have no opportunity to even address the issue and try to get the children back. And then nothing, crickets. Because what happens is, and particularly in our state and many, many other states, there's no way to address any kind of change or compliance until the very end of a case, which often takes a year or two. Now, there's supposed to be a 15-month federal deadline, but they rarely comply with that. But then if you get into the court system, the assaults on due process are actually even worse. There's no jury trial. All of the courts are secret. No press, no public is allowed. And they don't really, in most cases, use the actual rules of evidence that are used in every other part of the court system. And all the documentation is secret. So they're able to run an almost completely under the radar system without any accountability or scrutiny by anybody. And that guarantees that it's not going to be done right.
This goes beyond the Rivera family. It exposes the nationwide CPS industry profiting from the removal and trafficking of children. We're uncovering how due process is denied, families are broken, and federal dollars drive a system of state-sanctioned separation.
Wow, it's just such an incredible story. And can you explain what your wife was, her state at this point in time when she's seeing you get arrested, you're surrounded again, and she's getting arrested?
This is way outside of her realm of even understanding. So I just think that she was just traumatized. I found out, later on that she is traumatized, through family members that have spoken to her, because I'm not allowed to speak to her. But yeah, she just broke down. She's traumatized. She was just holding the kids as long as she could. And then they basically ripped her youngest son from her, which I think, even though it was all traumatizing, I think the youngest son was the most, because we just had him. Right.
Yeah, no, it's just awful. I don't think there's a parent out there that can't empathize. It's just everyone's worst nightmare. So, and you had to feel so helpless, and her, that there's nothing you can do, and you have no idea where your kids are going to go. At that point, they could be going into foster care. You just don't know.
I asked the police, and they wouldn't tell me anything. So they just didn't tell me anything.
And so, at this point, you're still the custodial parents. You have all decision-making rights and responsibilities, and they're not even telling you where they're taking your children.
Yeah, to our knowledge, they are God-given kids. Like, we got together out of love, we created them, and they're our kids. I was confused. I didn't even understand how a government could take your children.
Yeah, so certainly not here in the United States. So you spent 30 days in Texas jail, and your wife, and there's no contact between the two of you for this whole time?
No contact. Yeah, I was confused too myself when they hit me with the bail that they did, because they couldn't explain to me why they did it. I had to ask other inmates to get information. They hit both me and her with a $2.5 million bail, which is excessive and an unusual punishment, because we should be able to bail out and resolve our situation. That's basically when we got notified of hey, you guys are arrested because there's a warrant for you guys in Massachusetts. And okay, well, let us bail out and go handle it. And no, they hit us with $2.5 million each, $500,000 for each child, even though they're our children.
And what's the charge? So you're in jail, and what's the charge?
Well, yes, they told us custodial kidnapping, actually, yes.
Okay, so you and your wife kidnapped your own children.
Children, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up?
Yeah, I don't even know how to, like, every time I say it to myself or replay it in my head, it just doesn't even make sense. How can you kidnap your own children? That's like you driving somewhere, going to Disneyland to have fun. The state says, hey, no, we own your children. And you left and went to Florida to go to Disneyland. So guess what? You're criminals now. We're going to persecute you across the country. You kidnapped your children from us. And, you know, with through medical neglect, which we've proven through interviews and from both departments in Texas and Massachusetts that there was never any medical neglect. The doctor proved it himself when he gave my son a clean bill of health, but we're gonna persecute you anyway. My plan going forward is to just beat the case, never end up here again. And yeah, I mean, a lot of my case is based off injustice. So, you know, I am a man that takes accountability. So, you know, but, you know, hopefully just beat this case, reunite with my family, move forward.
On a gray, rain-soaked Thursday morning, Izzy Rivera stood before the court, another painful chapter in a case that has laid bare the troubling inner workings of Massachusetts Department of Children and Families. A powerful crowd of supporters, parents, advocates, and fellow citizens gathered in solidarity outside the courthouse and inside the gallery. Emotions ran high as the father and mother stood before the court, fighting for the return of their children. His court-appointed attorney arrived late and went straight to the bench, never once acknowledging her client. The silence spoke volumes, leaving Rivera's supporters in the gallery questioning whether the system has any genuine concern for the parents it claims to serve. As Izzy fights to bring his children home, the courtroom has become ground zero in a growing battle between parental rights and unchecked state authority. Following the hearing, Izzy and Ruth were escorted to a private meeting room alongside their respective attorneys. There, they were informed that both sides had agreed to return to court in July for a motion to dismiss. This joint decision between the prosecution and defense signals a potential shift in the case, one that could bring long-awaited relief if the motion is granted.
I feel good because I got to see my wife. She wouldn't look at me though, you know, but again, that's because of, you know, DCF and the destruction of my family and what they're telling her she's allowed and not allowed to do. I mean, I feel good. They're gonna put in a 3G motion to dismiss.
Is that her attorney that's doing it, or your attorney?
Both of our attorneys are doing it. That's what they stated in court that they were gonna do.
Okay, and do they feel like they have a good solid ground to do that? Is your attorney coming around?
Yeah, they're 100% confident that they do.
Okay.
Because again, this should have never happened. Well, right now I'm just restructuring my life. I haven't seen my kids after, you know, being incarcerated for 3 months, and my first visitation is tomorrow, so I'm excited, I'm happy.
Where will that be?
In the DCF office in Worcester, Mass.
Okay, and where are your children currently, and who's bringing them to the office?
Currently, they're with relatives. They're with my wife's mother and my wife's sister, and I believe that the caseworker is going to take them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's an opportunity to reconcile with your wife after the case is dismissed?
I'm absolutely not sure because I don't know. I mean, this has been traumatizing for her. You know, she got placed in jail. No criminal record, no nothing, just placed in jail for the first time ever in her life. She should have never went through. Then her kids kidnapped from her by DCF, taken on a plane to a different country. And I mean, that's all I can say because, you know, my attorneys are telling me not to speak on the case because it is an open case, but you know, they're charging us with kidnapping when in reality they're the kidnappers and they're the destroyers of families.
Again, This isn't the first time I've heard this from victims of CPS, DCF here in Massachusetts. Is this something that you've seen in the past as well? Is this a common theme where people are threatened by CPS, that if you don't comply, if you don't do everything we tell you, we're going to put your kids in a foster home and you'll never see them again?
Yes, that happens probably in the majority of cases, particularly when both parents are invested and involved and love their children and want to be part of it. If it's a single parent family, that works less, but in any two-parent family, intact family, that divide and conquer is one of their favorite tactics.
Right.
They seize on one of the parents and say, okay, we're going to make you bow, we're going to make you obey, and you're going to have to reject the other parent.
Right.
Now, keep in mind that in every single state, it's a mandate to try to reunify families.
Right.
I mean, the law says that.
Right.
But like many of these other laws, they couldn't care less that that's what they're supposed to do. So what they do is they do exactly the opposite. They put all these threats, and they will indeed take the children, eliminate visits, and as you pointed out, most of these visits are an hour a week. An hour a week for your children to get to see them. Who can maintain a relationship over a year or 2 years with children, seeing them an hour a week?
Yep.
It's just horrible.
You know?
So when your wife gets out, is she reunited with your children?
No, she's not. She's kept away from them. DCF, you know, she has to comply with DCF under duress and by force of, you know, keeping her kids away from her, and or else they'll end up in a foster care, you know, and.
So she's under threat that if she doesn't comply, your kids are going into foster homes, and so they're
yes.
going to permanently lose your children.
As well as.
But as of right now, your wife has never neglected or abused your kids.
No.
There's no evidence that your wife has ever neglected or abused your children, or that she's an irresponsible mother, that she shouldn't be left alone with a child.
No.
There's no evidence of that, but she still, to this day, as of this interview, can't see her kids but like an hour a week, and it has to be supervised. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When we try to bring up the misconduct of the agency, most of the judges will say, well, the agency's not on trial here. In other words, it's the parents.
Right.
They're the problem,
Right.
never the agency.
Yeah.
It can do no wrong.
And isn't it a job of a judge to get to the truth of the matter? I mean, isn't that the point? And so for them to not hear what's happening with the agency, like the agency making, you know, I've heard that they create evidence out of thin air to bolster themselves when they get caught with malfeasance, or what they did is a little shaky, that they fabricate evidence in their own favor to justify what they did when they don't have the real evidence. Is that, have you witnessed that as well?
I have seen that, and they do a number of different things to try to get evidence. I mean, they talk to other family members, they go to the doctors, they go to the school. They're trying to find anything or anybody that can say a bad word about the parents so that they can justify the continued captivity. I'm not sure how much is manufactured, but they try to put together a sinister sounding folio of statements from various people that, well, maybe they maybe they disciplined their child wrong, or maybe they didn't go and get their vaccines when they were young, or something of that. So whatever they can pull together.
So what's happening right now is that I'm forced to comply, or I won't be able to get my kids back. I'm under duress. I mean, they're using my kids against me, so you know they have the ultimate weapon against me or any parent. I mean, my hands are tied. It's like I left one prison to go into another one. You know, the handcuffs haven't come off because, you know, they're forcing me to comply and take, from now it seems, you know, a year or more of my life to just do programs that I shouldn't even have to do to be with my kids, you know.
And these are, I'm assuming you have to pay for these programs.
Yep.
And what are the programs that they want to do? What does complying look like? What are the hoops they're asking you to jump through?
They're asking me to do a psychological evaluation. They're trying to paint me as crazy, I believe, to protect themselves. They want me to do a domestic abuse class to make her a victim and me an aggressor, so they can paint a picture against me as well. And then they want me to take therapy classes for my emotions.
You spend 30 days in jail there, and then you get sent back here to Massachusetts, you and your wife.
Yeah.
So you're not freed after that, you're just, and was there any hearings in Texas?
There was one hearing for to like waive extradition or not, and basically they would have had to, you know, I would have had to stay, they said 90 days or more until they could get the like a governor's hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at this point, do you know where your kids are? Do you have any idea where your children are? Are they giving
No.
you any information?
No.
And you don't know how your wife is doing?
I don't know how she's doing. I would ask a CO every day, but they wouldn't tell me because they said their policy is that inmates can't have communication with each other and that we were co-defendants. And I'm like, how are we co-defendants? What did we do? Where is my wife?
Right.
Like, what's going on?
Yeah. What was that like for you sitting in jail, coping with those emotions and those feelings? Because you're obviously missing your children. You know your life is just blown up.
Yeah.
You know your job is going down the drain. Your career. That even at this point, I'm sure you're thinking, if I get out, how do I even support my family? You have your own marketing business. You can't call clients. What was that like for you?
I mean, I personally consider myself a strong man. You know, I work out every day to, you know, strengthen my mind, and I believe in God and faith, and I'm a very strong man mentally and emotionally, but this just broke me down. I mean, I was just broken down. I was traumatized myself, and I you know, we all go through certain traumas in life that build us and grow us, you know, but this was like, this was just different. I mean, they took my kids from me, and all I was thinking in my mind personally, I don't know if you want to have this interview, was like, I hope they don't get, you know, raped. I hope they don't get hit, abused. I hope they don't actually get neglected. I hope, you know, and my fear was for all of them, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, especially my 9-month-old, because he can't even speak. I mean, what if they do something to him? Will I ever find? My thoughts were just running crazy for their protection, her protection, because I knew she was gonna be, my whole worries, or all of my worries were for them, you know. I was just praying to God, keeping my faith. I read the Bible to whenever my mind would take me to places where I needed to cry and things like that. But yeah, just traumatizing, a lot of stress. I'm just hoping God, and I'm believing that God will restore my family, and I'll get justice for all the wrong that's been done to my family.
Yeah. Any messages for your wife and children right now? Someday they'll watch this. And so, what would you say to them if they were in front of you right now?
I would say that Daddy loves them, and I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm sorry that I didn't protect you the way I'm supposed to protect you. And God will restore us, and I love you, and I'll never stop loving you.
A recent decision in the Massachusetts Parents for Religious Liberty case has shed new hope and new light on those parents that are fighting for medical freedom in the battle with Child Protective Services. Attorney Mike King joins us now with the latest development in a Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court decision.
Yeah, I just learned this week that we had a really great ruling at the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. There was Rastafarian parents that DCF had temporary custody of their children, and there was this question about vaccination, and the parents were very much against it. And so we had a ruling come out in favor of the parents, in favor of the parental rights here in Massachusetts. And I'll just read a quote from the court. It says, "There is no question that the rights to freely practice one's religion and to raise children according to the dictates of one's own conscience are among the most sacred private interests, long recognized as such by this court and the United States Supreme Court." And then goes on to say that this reaffirms that the Massachusetts Constitution provides even more protection for religious liberty than the U.S. Constitution does. So very pleased that the SJC came out with a ruling protecting religious liberty, protecting parental rights, especially in cases like with DCF and when parents do not want their kids to be vaccinated when the children are under temporary custody.
Absolutely, and there's so many cases where as soon as CPS gets those kids, that's the first thing they do, especially when they know the parents don't want it. It's a power play.
As more families come forward with stories of overreach, secrecy, and devastating separation, it's clear the crisis isn't just about one case. It's the system itself. Attorney William Gens brings a seasoned constitutional perspective to what many are now calling a rogue, unlawful apparatus. Bill Gens is a throwback to a bygone era, a time when attorneys grounded their practice in the Constitution, personal integrity, and fearless advocacy for the individual. In a legal landscape too often dominated by backroom deals and bureaucratic compromise, Gens stands out as a principled defender of due process and natural rights, echoing the resolve of a mid-century legal giant who believed the courtroom was the place for truth, not theater. With decades of experience, Gens is among a growing chorus demanding a full overhaul or outright dismantling of CPS, a system operating far outside the bounds of the Constitution.
With regard to the problem of DCF, for example, or Child Protective Services, and it's known by a whole bunch of acronyms in different states, but it's the same problems everywhere. It's part of a larger problem, which is the administrative state. The events of the last several years, and by that I mean really going back to around 2015, 16 or so, but accelerating with great rapidity in 2020, from then to the present, has been, for many people, a great reveal. For people who were not in fear, for people who are having inquiring mind, who are capable of reasoning things out on their own, there's been abundant things happening all around us to allow us to grow spiritually and in terms of our understanding of what's happening around us. Even people who were so-called conspiracy theorists before all that have learned things, such as myself. I never believed in climate change or the moon landings or a dozen other things that you could talk about. But I wasn't prepared for the depth of the reveal that I saw, especially from COVID. I saw every human weakness possible. I saw ignorance, corruption, cowardice. I saw so much, and so did everybody else.
Yeah, we sure did.
And I think that the level of awareness is high amongst people, is higher now than it's ever been in the last, at least in the post-World War II era. And people are questioning. They're questioning their government. They're questioning Big Pharma. They're questioning these foreign wars. They're questioning DCF. They're questioning so many things. And that's good. I believe that God wants us to seek truth. It says in the Bible over and over again, two things: seek truth and fear not. And that's a spiritual message. And as long as people do that, we're going to be so much better off.
This is the reckoning, and the rising is now. Join us. Please go to American Made Action. There are always actionable items on there that you can take immediately. It is going to take all of us to push back on a rogue government, rogue agencies, and rogue judges.
Join us again, AmericanMadeAction.org and at AmericanMadeFoundation.org. Thank you for watching.